everyone, OMG, if you're watching this video, it means the one that was previous, actually, you were so interested and you wanted more. And that's why we are here, to give you more that you're asking for. I want to thank you all for the subscribers, the new subscribers. Thank you so much. Continue subscribing to my channel. Tell a friend, tell a friend. Awesome content is coming. And today is part 2
I don't think we should talk about
series
this.
episode 4.
People might misunderstand what we're trying to say, you know? But that's a part of life.
And again, today I am joined with Rev Ashley.
Come on.
You should play the song where we're talking about FBA.
Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things.
Anyway.
I will, but I am so excited. I am learning a lot, and people are learning a lot. So today is part 2 of episode 4, and today we are just going to be. You thought the previous one we were candid, we were raw. You have not seen it yet. You have not even had a taste. So today we are going deeper into the questions. And you see the way the Ashley is looking at me like, oh my dear soul, yes. Yes, today we are going deeper and deeper because, well, it gets deeper with distance, right? So,
yes. Okay.
So let's just dive right into the questions and let's start. So we've been talking about let's talk about sex and all those things that we did in the previous episode. So today, the first questions I want to ask, some people will be like, so someone who's new or maybe doesn't know about it or what it entails and such. So our first question is, what is sex?
What is
sex? What is sex?
What is sex?
Yeah.
That's a loaded question.
Well,
that's a loaded question. What is sex? I mean, I don't even know how to answer that. I think it's a man and a woman coming together, engaging in sexual acts of whatever sort that involves you physically, engages you emotionally and spiritually. In our last segment, we talked about that sex encompasses all three. So I think sex it's everything encompassed in one. But it's the physical act, of course, of coming together. The Bible tells us in Genesis 2 that the Adam and Eve joined together and the two became one flesh. There's countless times in the Word of God where it says the man knew his wife. That word "knew" talks about sex. So it's the joining of a man and a woman together physically. Even though it's a physical act, it definitely engages both your emotions and your spirit, but it is the physical act of coming together for the purpose. Of course, the Word of God tells us to create a righteous offspring, to produce godly seed, as well as for the fun. I mean, for the pleasure of it. I mean, it's supposed to be enjoyable. It's supposed to be fun. So I think twofold. It was made for a purpose, and it was also made for pleasure. So. That's sex.
Awesome. So there's you've said it's fun, right? So the next question is like, what does it entail? And there are specific pointers. So like some people say it is painful, and Gio say it's supposed to be fun and pleasurable. How are these two?
Okay, so let's have a little health class real quick.
Yes,
so for a woman, the first time she has sexual intercourse, it is painful, and that is because a woman who's never had sex, she has something called a hymen. The hymen sits pretty much on the very top of a vagina, and when the man has intercourse or penetrates the hymen, it breaks, and therefore you bleed. Well, that's how we know whether or not you are a virgin. That is actually what the Jewish people would use when they would consummate their marriage. When they would get married, they'd actually go immediately to the wedding room or to the marriage room, and they would consummate immediately just to make sure that the bride was indeed a virgin. And so the proof would be on the sheets. If she bled, then she was a virgin. And so that's where it is painful. That can be very painful for many young women or women in general. And not just for women. I have heard from men that the first time they have an orgasm, it is actually painful for them. The sensation that comes upon them, it's a discomforting pleasure, if that makes sense. It's not painful as a woman would experience, because most women do equate it to painful, very discomforting. But I've heard from men that it's not like the very first time they engage in sexual intercourse and they have an orgasm. It is it's a discomforting pleasure. And I would say the same thing even for a female. Once your hymen breaks, it's not as painful, but it still becomes, it's sort of discomforting. Now, as you continue a sexual relationship with your husband, with your wife, of course, it becomes more pleasurable, and it's not painful at all. And there are some special cases where women have, or men have, medical issues and things like that. But when all things constant, all things normal, for the most part, it's not painful. As if everyone's healthy, everyone's good. It's not painful. It's very enjoyable. It's very fun. Which that's how you know God didn't create it for just the purpose of reproducing and having children. It is also to satisfy something within you, something that you need, the feeling physically, of course, the emotional connection as well. So I think it varies. I know for me, yeah, it's very painful, but when you continue, you break in, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Okay. You've said something about hymen before we continue in the details. Hymen, does every woman have it, or some don't have it?
Now, my understanding is yes, every woman does. Not the only reason why a woman would not is if she had previously been in relationship and been in sexual intercourse. It would only not be there if that was the case. But yeah, every woman is born with that. It's to my knowledge. I have never heard of anything different, or read of anything different. So yes, every woman is born with that. And again, that is the whole proof. And I actually have a very, very interesting testimony about that exact thing. I don't know if this is the time to talk about it, but you brought it up, so I guess I'll bring it up.
Please. Feel free.
I'll go ahead. I'll go right ahead. So there was a woman, I heard her testimony. She was dating a guy, and they dated for a long time, and of course it became physical, all those things. And so they broke up. She was hurt, he was hurt. It was a bad breakup and all that stuff. But she knew that was not who she was supposed to be with. It was just a crazy relationship. And so, but it was physical. It was a lot of physical involved. And so when they broke up, she really went through a time of healing and repenting and asking God to make her whole again and all those kinds of things. And she met another man, began courting him years later, but she still held a lot of condemnation and guilt, that not necessarily that she had made the mistake of, having sex before marriage, but more that she had robbed her husband of experiencing that first time together, because I believe her husband was a virgin and she was not. And so she felt like she was robbing him more so of the first time experience. And so she really had that heaviness on her. And so she began to pray and really ask God to just heal her and to free her from that guilt of robbing her husband, who her husband would be of that, and really wanted that freedom that she would have as a woman in this whole marriage. So she prayed, she gets married. And so before she consummated her marriage, she prayed again. And she tells the testimony that when they had intercourse, like, she actually did bleed. Now, some people try to say, okay, well, she must have been on her menstrual or something. No, that's actually not the case. She testifies that it literally felt like the first time, discomfort and everything, and she bled. And for her husband, it was like it was his first time, and so everything was exactly like it was supposed to be. And for her, it was just such restoration, and God literally did a creative miracle in her. And, you know, it really makes me think, again, this whole bad context we've put sex in, that, you know, we believe God for creative miracle. If you, let's say you had an addiction, like a drug addiction, or you have a smoking addiction and the smoking has destroyed your lungs. And so you believe God for a creative miracle with that. And then God gives you a new lung and you're like, oh, God did it. But God, he's not big enough to recreate your hymen so that you can have the experience you're supposed to have with your husband. You know, we have so many times that we take this thing and we handpick where we want our miracles. And it's like, why can't he do that even in that situation? So I was dumbfounded by that testimony to see, you know, God can even recreate that in order to give you what he knows you're supposed to have, especially when you come truly repentant, truly turned away from, you know, what you know was wrong. I believe God can do it, you know. So I just thought that was a very interesting testimony.
Awesome. And on the details of what it entails, there's someone asked, what is a scorecard?
What is a scorecard?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's the question. What's a scorecard? Like when it comes to sex and all, what is a scorecard? Is it the same as your body count, or what is a scorecard?
Like, okay, so this is new to me. I might need studio to send me an interpretation. So like, you're meaning like ranking? Like slam dunk contest? Was that an 8? Was that a 9? Was that a 10? Like,
I think unless we Google and share screen.
I'm not Googling that.
Okay, let me Google and share screen and try it.
Wait, no, wait. What's a scorecard? I'm gonna need somebody. No, I've never heard of that. When I hear scorecard, I think it's ranked.